Hello, I'm Graham Fitch and I'm coming to you from Steinway Hall in London for Pianist Magazine. And this is the second video in this short series of 2 videos on practice ideas from some of the scores that we've got in the magazine. And I'm going to do two pieces in this particular video, although I will be featuring 3 in the article. And if you want to know which issue this relates to, have a look in the description box below and you'll get all the info. So I'm looking here at the Schubert E-flat Impromptu, the second of the first set. And what I'm going to do is to just give you a few ideas about learning it, about practicing it, about coming up with ways to practice it that'll give you really solid, secure results, whether you're learning it from scratch or whether you're learning it, you have already learned it and you want to just polish it up a little bit, and you'll recognize this well-known beautiful piece in E-flat major that features rolling triplets, and people focus on these triplets first, but actually what I would suggest doing is starting from the left hand, because the left hand's kind of interesting. You feel a bass line. If I play the first note of each bar, we feel a legato line with a thumb that needs to be terribly light. And notice how the texture changes there. So from first beats being important and second beats being really not important at all, it's the other way around. And you'll notice later on when you get to the second section, the B section, how important that second beat becomes. So Schubert is playing around with that second beat here. So you'll notice what I'm doing here is singing at the beginning and then dancing. And a lot of people miss that quality, that character in the left hand. Now, if you're beginning this piece from scratch, I would highly recommend playing super slowly this right hand. So, and I'm putting no weight or pressure into my keyboard. I want piano, but I'm playing from the surface of my key. I'm not lifting my fingers up. There's a little hairpin there. And I'm aiming for a melodic line. So I call this the speed of no mistakes, which is all the notes and the rhythms, of course, and the fingerings. For me, very important that we organize a fingering that works for our hand. It doesn't necessarily have to be the fingering that's in the book. In fact, be very discerning about whether you use the fingering from the score. But in this instance, I have my own fingering that I've organized. And what I would, did you notice how light my arm is? Because I don't want anything heavy in this right hand. So what I would, having played very slowly and just really be sure of my fingering and the balance, the evenness is the word I'm looking for, the evenness of my tone. I don't want any lumps and bumps coming out of that. I might then, when I put it together, do something that at first glance may seem a bit strange, but I'm going to play the right hand staccato. This will help us later to develop the leggero touch that we're going to need, sometimes called je peux lay. There's several other things you can do for practice. See how I'm grouping in 3s there. And I'm going to jump down to bar 25. I was giving a class recently to a group of adult amateurs, and somebody produced this, and she told me that she'd been playing this piece for about 30 years, but she'd never got this bit right, bar 25. So I asked her to play it slowly for me, and she struggled. So I'm going to just suggest the slower the better to start with. Super slowly. And so on. And I find this kind of practice very meditative because I'm thinking about everything I do before I do it. Having got that as a kind of primer coat, if you will, then to work in rhythmical groupings is very helpful, can be very helpful. Slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick. Then I can invert that and do the quick, quick, slow. And then when I want to play it faster, I rather like the idea of doing bar chains. So one bar and stop. The next bar. Don't go on until you've got that bar. Each bar exactly right. Other things you can do, you can stop on, I like to use controlled stops in the practice, and if you think about it, rhythms are a form of controlled stops. Supposing I stop on my first beats only. This gives me an arrival place. Now let me stop on my second beat. And so on. You get the idea? Now stop on the third beat. Let me do it. Takes a little bit of concentration. And just one final idea to leave you with on this piece would be to play one bar at the speed and the next bar at half the speed. And those of you that have seen my other videos will know how much I like this. It's fantastic for control. We're basically mixing up fast playing and slow practice in a very mindful, concentrated way. So one bar at the speed. And then I do that the other way around. And so on. Then you can work in 2 bars slowly, 2 bars fast. And if you practice with that level of detail, there's no way that you won't really understand what's going on in those few bars that do trip a lot of people up. Moving on, I'm going to now look at the piece that I was playing in the introduction, the Romance Poudrée by one J. Bergmijn, who is actually one of the Ricordi family, and Bergmijn was his nom de plume. And he wrote this very free, very rather lovely, flowery piece, which when we play this piece we have to almost forget that we've got good taste and to allow ourselves to take time in the way that a bel canto singer might really linger on certain things. But I'm going to show you first of all what goes on in the left hand at the beginning. It's very important that we have a left hand that really knows what it's doing, because this is the accompaniment or the accompanist down here. So what we need to do first of all is to forget about the right hand and just work on the left hand a little bit. I'm going to show you what I would suggest in all of these places where we've got a bass note. And then when we come to a chord, would be to just gently propel the 5th finger, or to allow the arm to come up. So we're lifting up and then we're landing here. Now do you notice how I do that? I'm not lifting up into the air, I'm lifting up, my fingers or my hand stays very close to the keys. It's a little bit like diving. So up and then land. So that would be the first job in each bar, to make sure you've got a very good sense of propulsion and landing. Now the secret of success with this left hand, so that it doesn't sound lumpy and you can control the sound, is to make as many connections as possible between the one chord and the next. So what I have found with the fingering that I've organized, 2, 3, 5, I lift up 2, 3, but I connect from my 5th finger. Do you see how that works? Now, there is no connection possible between that chord and this chord, either way, whether I'm going up or coming down. But for practice, if you do a substitution to a 2, and now a substitution back to a 1, now I can connect from my thumb. Do you see what I'm doing there? Lifting the 2 and 3, just the fingers come up very, very small distance, just to the top of the keys, not even, actually halfway. So then, once I've organized that, carefully like that, I feel like I'm really almost legato in the hand. So that would be one thing, very important to do first. And then when you add your right hand, a beautiful legato cantabile. Now, let me show you that again. This is also in the left hand. Can you feel the legatos there? They don't cost me any effort. It just makes me feel very much in control of what I'm doing. Now, if we go over a little bit, I have to play you this little bit here because it's so, well, I think it's rather lovely here what he does. We have the same tune again as the beginning. Very delicate sound, so I'm aiming for something here, again, as connected as I can make it in my left hand, so that my right hand can float above. And because I like that misty colour there, I'm using my left pedal, which is perfectly fine. People are scared of the left pedal, but it's there to be used. Every piano in the world has one. Use it when you want that muted, veiled sound. I'm going to talk a little bit about the music that we find in bar 34, fortissimo. We've got this wonderful opportunity to open up the sound of the piano. And then flowed. It's very much heart on the sleeve music. Now, of course, it's wonderful to play loudly on the piano. We all love making the sound. It's a kind of visceral, physical feeling of just really going to town. However, we've got to be very careful when we practice loud music because a lot of the time we really do not want to practice it loudly. We're much better off bringing the dynamic down. Why? Well, several reasons. One is we still need to texturize the sound, the balance. So what I'm doing here, you'll notice I'm not just banging. I've got still my top, and then the chords underneath. Even though it's fortissimo, these chords underneath are light. Mezzo piano, maybe even mezzo forte, but we don't need to bang those chords. In fact, we shouldn't bang these chords. So I'm really being very attentive to my voicing. So that's one thing. When we practice loudly, we can end up making not very good sound. The other thing is, if you're practicing for any length of time, loud music, you're likely to cause physical problems, and we don't want to have any injuries. The other thing is it just keeps the ear really sensitized to what we're doing if we can control it softly, and it keeps us mobile. So many benefits to practicing loud music softer. So I hope that's given you a few ideas about how you might approach these two rather lovely pieces that we've got in the magazine. And happy practicing, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.